Maya Chen had been looking forward to this day for months. At 17 years old, she was about to board her first solo flight from Washington Dulles International Airport. Her small backpack felt heavy on her shoulders, not because of its weight, but because of what it represented. Inside was her acceptance letter to the National Youth Leadership Summit, a program that only selected 20 students from across the entire country. Her parents had dropped her off at the terminal entrance 30 minutes ago, and she could still hear her mother's worried voice telling her to call as soon as she landed. The airport buzzed with activity. Business travelers rushed past with their rolling suitcases. Families struggled with strollers and crying babies. Maya joined the security line, clutching her brand-new passport in her sweaty palm. She had only received it 3 weeks ago, and the pages were still crisp and unmarked. Getting that passport had been its own adventure. Her parents had taken her to the passport office downtown, where a stern photographer had told her to remove her glasses and not smile. The photo had turned out okay, she thought, even though it didn't quite look like her anymore. That was the thing about being 17. Everything about you could change in just a few months. When she had taken that passport photo, her hair had been long and straight, hanging past her shoulders. She had worn it that way since middle school. But 2 weeks ago, on a random Saturday afternoon, she had walked into a salon and asked them to cut it short, really short. The kind of pixie cut that her mom said made her look bold and confident. She had also started wearing glasses full-time instead of contact lenses. Her optometrist said her eyes needed a break from the contacts, so here she was with black-rimmed frames that she was still getting used to seeing in the mirror. The security line moved slowly. Maya counted the people ahead of her, 12, then 11, then 10. She rehearsed in her mind what she would need to do. Laptop out, shoes off, liquids in a clear bag. She had watched enough YouTube videos about airport security to feel prepared. Finally, it was her turn to approach the podium where a security officer checked documents. The guard was a middle-aged man with a thick neck and arms that strained against his uniform sleeves. His name tag read D. Morrison, and he had the kind of face that looked like it rarely smiled. Maya handed over her passport and boarding pass with what she hoped was a confident smile. Morrison took the documents without looking at her. He opened the passport to the photo page and his eyes flicked between the picture and Maya's face. Then he did it again and again. His eyebrows drew together in a frown. "This you?" he asked, his voice flat and suspicious. "Yes, sir," Maya replied, her heart starting to beat a little faster. Morrison held up the passport, tilting it toward the fluorescent lights overhead. He squinted at it, then looked back at Maya with an expression that made her stomach drop. It was the look someone gives you when they think you're lying. "This doesn't look like you," he said loudly, too loudly. Several people in line behind Maya turned to look. Maya felt her face growing hot. "I cut my hair recently and I'm wearing glasses now. But that's definitely me in the photo." Morrison let out a snort that might have been a laugh. "Cut your hair? Kid, this looks like a completely different person." He turned to another security officer standing a few feet away, a younger guy who had been checking boarding passes at the next podium. "Hey, check this out." The other officer walked over and Morrison held up the passport like it was evidence at a crime scene. "What do you think? Does this look like the same person to you?" Maya wanted to disappear. The second officer glanced at the passport, then at Maya, looking uncomfortable. "I mean, maybe if she changed her hair." "Changed her hair?" Morrison interrupted with a harsh laugh. "Come on, man. Use your eyes. The girl in this picture has long hair past her shoulders. This one," he gestured at Maya like she was an object, "has hair shorter than mine. And these glasses? Convenient way to hide your face, isn't it?" "I'm not hiding anything," Maya said, her voice coming out smaller than she intended. "I really did just cut my hair, and my eye doctor said I needed to wear my glasses more often. It's still me." Morrison wasn't listening. He was now examining every page of her passport, holding it up to the light, bending it slightly, running his thumb over the photo page. "You know how many fake passports come through here? This looks brand new, suspiciously new." "It is new," Maya explained, trying to keep her voice steady. "I just got it last month for this trip. I've never traveled internationally before, so I never needed one until now." "Right," Morrison said, dragging out the word in a way that made it clear he didn't believe her. "So you just happen to get a passport that looks nothing like you, and you expect me to just wave you through? That's not how this works, sweetheart." Maya flinched at the condescending way he called her sweetheart. Behind her, the line was growing longer. She could feel dozens of eyes on her back, could hear people muttering and shuffling their feet impatiently. An older man in a business suit checked his watch and sighed loudly. Morrison seemed to be enjoying the attention. He held the passport higher, practically putting on a show. See, people don't understand that we have to be vigilant. You can't just trust everything you see. This could be a completely different person's passport. Maybe she found it somewhere. Maybe she bought it online. Who knows? I didn't buy anything, Maya said, her voice shaking now despite her efforts to stay calm. That's my passport. My parents took me to get it. We went to the office downtown. They took my picture right there. Sure they did, Morrison said with a smirk. He pulled out a small magnifying glass from his pocket and began examining the passport even more closely, making a big production of it. You know what I think? I think something's not right here. The picture quality looks off. The colors seem wrong. The woman standing in line directly behind Maya spoke up. She was elderly, probably in her 70s, with kind eyes and a gentle voice. Officer, maybe you should just let her through. She's just a young girl trying to catch her flight. Morrison's head snapped up and his friendly demeanor vanished completely. Ma'am, I need you to mind your own business. This is a security matter, and I'm trained to spot these things. You're not. The elderly woman took a step back, looking startled by his harsh tone. Maya felt tears starting to burn behind her eyes, but she blinked them away hard. She would not cry. She would not give him the satisfaction. Morrison called over his shoulder. Linda, can you come here for a minute? A woman in a supervisor's uniform approached the podium. She was tall and thin, with her hair pulled back in a tight bun. What's the problem, Derek? Got a suspicious passport here, Morrison said, handing it to her. Take a look at this photo and tell me if you think it matches. The supervisor took the passport and examined it with the same skeptical expression Morrison had worn. She looked at Maya, then back at the photo, her lips pressed into a thin line. How old is this passport? 3 weeks, Maya said quietly. 3 weeks, the supervisor repeated, exchanging a meaningful look with Morrison. And you've already changed your appearance this drastically? I just cut my hair, Maya said, hearing the desperation creeping into her voice. That's all. And I'm wearing my glasses instead of contacts. Morrison crossed his arms over his chest. You know what I think we need to do? We need to call this in. Get federal authorities involved. This could be passport fraud, and that's a serious crime. Maya's blood ran cold. What? No, this is my passport. I haven't done anything wrong. I'm just trying to get to my flight. Then you won't mind waiting while we verify this, will you? Morrison said with a satisfied smile. He picked up his radio from his belt, his finger hovering over the button. The crowd behind Maya had grown restless. Some people were recording on their phones now, holding them up to capture what was happening. A few travelers were complaining loudly about the delay, but Maya barely heard any of it. All she could think about was missing her flight, missing the summit, and the complete humiliation of being treated like a criminal in front of hundreds of strangers. Her hands trembled as she stood there, frozen and helpless, while Morrison prepared to make the call that would turn her dream trip into a nightmare. Morrison's finger pressed down on the radio button, and Maya felt her world starting to crumble. This couldn't be happening. Not today. Not when she had worked so hard to earn her spot at the leadership summit. She thought about calling her parents, but her phone was buried in her backpack, and she didn't want to make any sudden movements that might make things worse. Hold on a second. Derek? The supervisor, Linda said, still examining the passport under the bright security lights. Let me take another look at this before you make that call. Morrison lowered his radio but kept it in his hand, clearly eager to use it. Linda, come on. Look at her. Then look at this photo. They're not the same person. I've been doing this job for 15 years. I know a fake when I see one. Linda turned the passport over in her hands, checking the back cover, the binding, even the way the pages felt between her fingers. Maya watched with her heart pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. Maybe the supervisor would be more reasonable. Maybe she would see that this was all just a huge misunderstanding. But when Linda looked up, Maya's hope evaporated. The supervisor's face wore the same suspicious expression as Morrison's. Where did you say you got this passport? At the passport office downtown, Maya repeated, trying to keep her voice from shaking. On Columbia Street. My parents were with me. We had an appointment. They took my picture there with their camera. Everything was done officially. Columbia Street, Linda repeated slowly. as if testing whether Maya would change her story. And when exactly was this? 3 weeks ago. Maybe closer to 4 weeks now. It was a Tuesday afternoon. We had a 2 o'clock appointment. Morrison jumped back into the conversation. You see? She's got all these specific details ready. That's what people do when they're lying. They rehearse their story so it sounds believable. Maya's mouth dropped open. What? No, I remember it because taking the day off school was a big deal. And my mom had to leave work early. It's not a rehearsed story. It's just what happened. Uh-huh, Morrison said, not even trying to hide his disbelief. He turned to address the growing crowd of passengers behind Maya. Sorry, folks, this is going to take a few more minutes. We've got a security situation here. You understand, right? Better safe than sorry. Several people in line groaned. A woman with 2 small children asked if there was another line they could move to. A businessman in an expensive suit was typing furiously on his phone, probably complaining to someone about the delay. But a few others were watching with interest, their phones still recording everything. Linda handed the passport back to Morrison and pulled out her own phone. I'm going to call the passport verification hotline. We can check if this document number is legitimate. Good idea, Morrison said, nodding approvingly. He looked at Maya with a smug expression. See, this is proper procedure. If everything's legitimate like you say, then you've got nothing to worry about. But Maya had plenty to worry about. Her flight was boarding in 45 minutes. Even if they verified her passport right now, she still had to get through the actual security screening, find her gate, and board the plane. Time was running out, and these two were treating her like she was some kind of international criminal. Please, Maya said, hating how desperate she sounded. Can't you just let me through? I'm going to miss my flight. This is really important. What's so important? Morrison asked, crossing his arms. Hot vacation with friends? Spring break trip? No, Maya said quietly. I'm going to Washington, D.C. for a youth leadership summit. I was selected from thousands of applicants. If I miss this flight, I miss the opening session. Morrison and Linda exchanged glances. Morrison actually laughed. A leadership summit, you? That's a good one. Maya felt something inside her shift from scared to angry. What's that supposed to mean? I mean, come on, Morrison said, gesturing at her. Look at you. You're standing here with a fake passport, probably trying to sneak off somewhere your parents don't know about, and you want me to believe you're some kind of youth leader? The words stung more than Maya wanted to admit. She had spent months preparing for this summit. She had written essays, done interviews, submitted recommendation letters from her teachers. She had stayed up late working on her application while her friends were out having fun. And now this security guard was dismissing all of that like it meant nothing. My passport is not fake, Maya said, her voice stronger now despite the tears threatening to spill over. And I worked really hard to get selected for this program. You don't know anything about me. I know you're wasting everyone's time, Morrison shot back. He raised his voice so the whole line could hear. This is exactly why we have security measures. People think they can just walk through with fake documents and a sob story. The elderly woman who had spoken up before tried again. Young man, you're being very harsh with this child. Maybe you should get someone else to handle this situation. Ma'am, I already told you to stay out of this, Morrison said sharply. One more word and I'll have you removed from the line for interfering with security operations. The elderly woman's face flushed red, but she stayed quiet. Maya wanted to thank her for trying, but she couldn't find her voice. She felt completely powerless, trapped in a nightmare where nothing she said or did made any difference. Linda was still on her phone, apparently on hold with the passport verification line. She kept checking her watch and sighing impatiently. Morrison stood with his arms crossed, watching Maya like she might suddenly make a run for it. The line behind them had grown even longer, snaking back through the terminal. Security personnel at other checkpoints kept glancing over, trying to figure out what was causing the holdup. You know what really gets me? Morrison said, apparently unable to stay quiet. It's the entitlement. Kids these days think they can do whatever they want. Rules don't apply to them. Show up at the airport with an obviously fake passport and expect us to just let them through. It's not fake, Maya said again, but her voice came out weak and defeated. Sure it's not, Morrison replied with a smirk. And I bet you've got a great explanation for why you look completely different from your photo, right? Let me guess, it's not just the hair? You probably lost weight. Maybe you had braces removed. Got a nose job. People change, right? Maya couldn't believe what she was hearing. A nose job? I'm 17 years old. I just cut my hair and started wearing my glasses. That's it. Why are you making such a big deal out of this? Because passport fraud is a federal crime, Morrison said, clearly enjoying himself now. And when I catch someone trying to pull something, I take it very seriously. That's what separates good security officers from lazy ones. I actually pay attention. A young man in line spoke up. Dude, maybe you're paying attention to the wrong things. She's obviously just a kid trying to catch a flight. Her passport looks fine to me. Morrison whirled around. Oh, you're an expert now? You're trained in document verification, no? Then keep your opinions to yourself. More people were starting to pull out their phones. Maya realized that this whole humiliating experience was being recorded from multiple angles. Tomorrow, she could be all over social media. That security guard who harassed a teenage girl at the airport. The thought made her feel sick. Linda finally finished her phone call. She walked back over to Morrison and Maya, shaking her head. The wait time is over 30 minutes. They're experiencing high call volume. 30 minutes? Maya's voice cracked. My flight leaves in less than an hour. Please, there has to be another way to verify this. Should we just call federal agents directly? Morrison suggested to Linda, clearly hoping for a yes. Linda hesitated. She looked at Maya, then at the massive line of increasingly angry passengers, then back at the passport in Morrison's hand. Maybe we should get a supervisor from TSA involved. This is taking too long and we're creating a bottleneck. I am handling this, Morrison insisted. We don't need more people involved. I've got it under control. Derek, look at this line, Linda said, gesturing at the crowd. We've got over 50 people backed up here. Some of them are going to miss their flights too if we don't move things along. So what do you want me to do? Morrison demanded. Just wave her through? Ignore protocol? What if this passport really is fake and we let her go? That's on us. That's our jobs on the line. Maya couldn't take it anymore. Can I please just speak to someone else? Someone in charge? This isn't fair. I haven't done anything wrong and you're treating me like a criminal in front of all these people. Oh, now she wants to complain about fairness, Morrison said mockingly. Tell you what's not fair. What's not fair is honest travelers having to wait because someone decided to try their luck with a fraudulent document. It's not fraudulent. Maya's voice rose, surprising even herself. How many times do I have to say it? This is my passport. My real passport. I didn't do anything wrong. Why won't you believe me? Morrison opened his mouth to respond, but suddenly his radio crackled to life. A voice came through, official and crisp. All security personnel be advised. We have federal agents entering the checkpoint area. Maintain your positions and continue normal operations. Morrison and Linda exchanged confused looks. Federal agents? Here, now. Morrison grabbed his radio. This is checkpoint 7. Can you clarify? What's going on? But before anyone could respond, Maya saw them. 4 people in dark suits moving through the terminal with unmistakable purpose and authority. They weren't running, but they weren't strolling either. They walked like people who knew exactly where they were going and expected everyone to get out of their way. And they were headed straight for checkpoint 7, straight for Maya. The 4 agents moved through the terminal like they owned it. People instinctively stepped aside to let them pass. Maya's first thought was that Morrison had somehow managed to call them already, and now she was in even bigger trouble. Her stomach twisted into knots. Were they here to arrest her? Would she be taken to some interrogation room? Would her parents have to come bail her out of federal custody? Morrison seemed to puff up with pride as the agents approached. He straightened his uniform and put on what he probably thought was his most professional face. Officers, thank you for responding so quickly. I've detained a suspect with a questionable passport. I think we've got a fraud situation here. The lead agent was a woman, tall and composed with sharp eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. She wore a dark blazer and had an earpiece that was barely visible. She didn't even glance at Morrison when he spoke. Instead, her eyes went straight to Maya. Are you Maya Chen? The agent asked, her voice calm but carrying absolute authority. Maya's mouth went dry. How did this woman know her name? She hadn't told anyone her full name. She managed a small nod. Yes, ma'am. The agent reached into her jacket, and for a terrifying second, Maya thought she was pulling out handcuffs. But instead, she produced a badge. I'm Agent Rebecca Stone with the United States Secret Service. These are my colleagues, Agents Torres, Williams, and Kim. Secret Service? Maya's brain couldn't process this information. Why would the Secret Service be at an airport security checkpoint? Why would they know her name? None of this made any sense. Morrison, however, looked thrilled. Secret Service? So this is bigger than just passport fraud? I knew something was wrong. My instincts were right on this one. Agent Stone finally turned to look at Morrison, and something in her expression made him take a small step back. Officer Morrison, I'm going to need you to return Miss Chen's passport immediately. Morrison's confident smile faltered. But I was just about to call in federal authorities. The passport doesn't match. Look at her photo and then look at her. It's clearly suspicious. I've seen the passport, Agent Stone said, her tone leaving no room for argument. It's legitimate. Return it now, please. How can you tell from over there? Morrison protested, still clutching Maya's passport like it was evidence. You haven't even examined it properly. I'm telling you, something's not right here. Agent Stone took 3 steps forward, and suddenly she was right in Morrison's personal space. She held out her hand. Officer Morrison, I'm not asking. Give me the passport. Morrison hesitated for a moment longer, then reluctantly handed it over. Agent Stone opened it, glanced at the photo page, and then looked at Maya with an expression that might have been the tiniest hint of sympathy. She turned back to Morrison and Linda. This passport was issued by the United States Department of State 3 weeks and 4 days ago. The document number checks out. The security features are all correct. And yes, this is definitely Maya Chen. She handed the passport directly to Maya, who took it with shaking hands. But how can you be sure? Linda asked, sounding less confident than before. The photo really doesn't look much like her. Agent Stone's expression hardened. Because we've been monitoring Miss Chen's travel today. We know exactly what she looks like. The passport is genuine, and your continued detention of her is both unnecessary and problematic. Morrison's face had gone from confident to confused to slightly pale. You've been monitoring her? Why? What did she do? She didn't do anything, Agent Stone said, emphasizing each word. That's not why we're here. Maya found her voice, even though it came out small and uncertain. I don't understand. Why are you monitoring me? I didn't know anyone was watching me. Did I do something wrong? Agent Stone's expression softened when she looked at Maya. No, Miss Chen, you haven't done anything wrong at all. In fact, quite the opposite. She turned back to Morrison and Linda, and her voice took on an official tone. Maya Chen is the daughter of Dr. James Chen, who serves as a senior cybersecurity advisor to the Department of Homeland Security. Due to recent credible threats against department personnel and their families, protective details have been assigned. The color drained from Morrison's face. The crowd that had been watching the drama unfold went completely silent. Someone in line whispered, "Oh no," loud enough for everyone to hear. Agent Stone continued. Miss Chen is traveling today to attend the National Youth Leadership Summit in Washington, D.C., where she will be one of 20 delegates representing the United States in discussions about digital security and international cooperation. She specifically requested minimal visible security presence because she wanted to travel like a normal teenager. Our team was maintaining a discreet distance to respect her wishes. Maya's mind was reeling. She knew her father worked for the government, but he rarely talked about his job at home. He always said it was boring technical stuff. She had no idea there were threats. No idea there were people protecting her family. No idea that today of all days she would have a Secret Service detail watching her. Until, Agent Stone said, her voice taking on a sharp edge. Officer Morrison here decided to detain her, loudly accuse her of passport fraud, and create a scene that drew attention from half the terminal, including attention from people we'd rather not have noticed Miss Chen at all. Morrison looked like he wanted the floor to swallow him whole. I was just doing my job. I thought the passport looked suspicious. Your job, Agent Stone said coldly, is to verify travel documents, not to publicly humiliate teenage girls based on superficial appearance changes. A haircut and glasses? That's your threshold for suspecting federal fraud? Linda tried to step in. We were following protocol. When a document doesn't match, we're supposed to investigate. Investigate, yes, Agent Stone said. Mock, demean, and embarrass? No. I've been standing over there for the last 10 minutes listening to Officer Morrison's commentary, calling her entitled, suggesting she had plastic surgery, accusing her of lying. That's not protocol. That's harassment. More phones were out now. More people recording. Maya realized that this was actually happening. The Secret Service was defending her. Agents had come to her rescue. The security guard who had been so smug and confident minutes ago now looked like he wanted to disappear. Agent Torres, one of the other agents, spoke up for the first time. "We're going to need to speak with your supervisor." The airport security director specifically. "I am a supervisor," Linda said weakly. "We need someone higher up," Agent Stone clarified. "What happened here today isn't just poor judgment. It's a security breach. By drawing excessive attention to our protectee and delaying her travel, you've potentially compromised an ongoing security operation." Maya's head was spinning. Security breach? Ongoing operation? This was supposed to be a simple trip to D.C. for a summit. She was just a high school student who was good at computer science. How had everything gotten so complicated? Morrison tried one more time to defend himself. "Look, I'm sorry if I made a mistake, but you have to understand. We see a lot of fake documents. I was just being thorough." "Thorough is checking the document carefully," Agent Stone said. "What you did was make assumptions based on appearance, and then refuse to consider that you might be wrong. Even when other passengers spoke up. Even when Miss Chen repeatedly explained the situation, you escalated instead of investigating." One of the agents, Williams, had been speaking quietly into his radio. He looked up at Agent Stone. "Airport director is on his way down. ETA 2 minutes. Good," Agent Stone said. She turned to Maya, and her voice became gentler. "Miss Chen, I apologize for what you've been through. This should never have happened. We're going to get you to your gate now. Your flight has been held for 10 minutes to ensure you can board." "The flight is being held?" Maya asked in disbelief. "For me? Federal security matter," Agent Stone said with the tiniest hint of a smile. "The airline was very understanding when we explained the situation. You'll make your summit on time." Relief flooded through Maya so intensely that her knees felt weak. She was going to make it. She wasn't in trouble. She hadn't done anything wrong. And the security guard who had made her feel so small and powerless was now the one who looked scared and uncertain. Morrison opened his mouth like he wanted to say something else, but Agent Stone held up a hand. "Officer Morrison, I strongly suggest you remain quiet until your director arrives. Anything you say right now could make this situation worse for you." Morrison's mouth snapped shut. He stood there looking miserable while other passengers in line whispered and stared. The elderly woman who had tried to defend Maya earlier caught her eye and gave her an encouraging smile and a thumbs up. A man in a suit came rushing through the terminal, slightly out of breath. "I'm Director Patterson, Airport Security. Someone want to tell me what's going on here?" Agent Stone stepped forward, her badge still visible. "Director Patterson, we need to discuss a serious incident involving one of your officers. But first we need to get Miss Chen through security and to her gate. Her flight leaves in 25 minutes. Director Patterson looked at Maya, then at Morrison's guilty face, then at the crowd of people recording everything on their phones. He seemed to understand immediately that this was bad. "Really bad, of course," he said quickly. "Miss Chen, please come with me. I'll escort you through security personally, and someone get this line moving again." Agent Stone nodded to Maya. "We'll be nearby if you need anything. Have a good flight, Miss Chen, and good luck at your summit." Maya wanted to say something, to thank them, to apologize for causing trouble, but her throat felt tight. She just nodded and followed Director Patterson toward the security scanners. Behind her, she could hear Agent Stone beginning what sounded like a very serious conversation with Morrison and Linda. As Maya walked away, she heard Morrison's voice, small and defeated. "Am I being arrested?" She didn't hear Agent Stone's response, but part of her didn't need to. For the first time in the last hour, Maya felt like she could breathe again. Director Patterson walked quickly through the terminal, and Maya had to almost jog to keep up with him. He kept glancing at her with an expression that mixed concern with what looked like embarrassment. When they reached a security screening area marked Priority Access, he gestured for her to go ahead of the 2 business travelers already waiting there. "Please, go right through," he said to Maya. Then to the other travelers, "Federal security matter. Thank you for your patience." The business travelers didn't argue. They had probably seen enough of the commotion at Checkpoint 7 to understand something serious was happening. Maya placed her backpack on the conveyor belt and walked through the metal detector. Everything beeped clear. Within 2 minutes, she had her bag back and was standing on the other side of security, finally in the actual terminal. Director Patterson pulled out his phone and made a quick call. "Yes, this is Patterson. The passenger from the incident is through security now. Can you make sure gate B17 knows she's on her way? He paused, listening. Yes, the flight is still holding good, thank you. He hung up and turned to Maya with an apologetic smile. Miss Chen, I cannot express how sorry I am for what happened back there. The treatment was completely unacceptable. We pride ourselves on maintaining both security and courtesy, and Officer Morrison failed on both counts. Maya didn't know what to say. She was still processing everything. 20 minutes ago, she had been on the verge of tears. Convinced she was going to miss her flight and possibly face criminal charges, now the airport director himself was apologizing to her. It's okay, she said quietly, then immediately felt stupid for saying it. It wasn't okay. None of what Morrison had done was okay. No, it's not okay, Director Patterson said, echoing her thoughts. And I want you to know that we will be conducting a full investigation into this incident. Officer Morrison's behavior today was unprofessional at best and discriminatory at worst. There will be consequences. They started walking toward the B gates. The terminal was crowded with travelers, and Maya noticed some people doing double takes when they saw her. A few were whispering to each other and pointing. She realized with a sinking feeling that videos of the confrontation were probably already spreading online. The Secret Service mentioned that you're attending some kind of leadership summit. Director Patterson continued as they walked. That must be quite an honor. The National Youth Leadership Summit, Maya said, finding her voice a bit stronger now. Only 20 students get selected from the whole country. We'll be working on digital security policy recommendations. Director Patterson looked impressed. Digital security? At 17? That's remarkable. My dad got me interested in it, Maya explained. I've been learning about cybersecurity since I was 12. I actually didn't know about his government work until today. He never really talked about it at home. Probably for good reason, Director Patterson said gently. When people work in sensitive government positions, they often keep the details private to protect their families. I'm sure your father never wanted you to worry about security threats. Maya thought about that. Her dad always seemed so normal at home. He helped with homework, made terrible jokes at dinner, and fell asleep on the couch during movies. It was strange to think of him as someone important enough to have threats against him, important enough that his family needed protection. They arrived at gate B17 where a gate agent was clearly waiting for them. She looked relieved when she saw Maya. Miss Chen, we've been holding the flight for you. We're ready to board you immediately. Thank you for waiting, Maya said. I'm so sorry for the delay. The gate agent smiled warmly. Don't apologize. We were told there was a security situation. We're just glad you made it. She lowered her voice and added, and between you and me, I saw some of the videos people were posting. That security guard was way out of line. I hope you're okay. So the videos were already circulating. Maya felt her face get hot with embarrassment all over again. Thousands of people, maybe millions, were going to see her being humiliated. They would see her standing there helpless while Morrison mocked her and accused her of crimes she didn't commit. Director Patterson must have noticed her expression because he said, Miss Chen, I know this is difficult, but try not to worry too much about the videos. If anything, they show very clearly that you did nothing wrong. You remained calm and respectful even when you were being treated unfairly. That speaks volumes about your character. But everyone's going to see it, Maya said, her voice small. Everyone at the summit will probably know about this before I even get there. Maybe, Director Patterson acknowledged. But they'll see a young woman who handled an unjust situation with grace and dignity. That's nothing to be ashamed of. The gate agent handed Maya her boarding pass. We've upgraded you to first class as an apology from the airline. It's the least we can do. I hope you enjoy the flight. First class? Maya had never flown first class in her life. She had barely flown at all. She took the boarding pass with a mumbled thank you, still feeling overwhelmed by everything. Director Patterson extended his hand for a handshake. Miss Chen, again, my sincerest apologies for what happened. Someone from our office will be reaching out to your family with a formal apology and an explanation of the disciplinary actions we'll be taking. And for what it's worth, good luck at your summit. Something tells me you're going to do great things. Maya shook his hand, managing a small smile. Thank you. For everything. She walked down the jetway toward the plane, her legs still feeling a bit shaky. When she stepped onto the aircraft, a flight attendant greeted her with a genuine smile. Welcome aboard, Miss Chen. Your seat is 2A, right up here on the left. The first-class cabin was nearly empty. Maya found her seat by the window and sank into it, amazed by how much space there was. The leather seat was soft and comfortable, nothing like the cramped economy seats she was used to. She tucked her backpack under the seat in front of her and finally allowed herself to take a deep breath. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out and saw a flood of notifications. Text messages from her mom, her dad, even her older brother who was away at college. Missed calls, voicemails. Her mom's last text simply said, "Call me immediately. Dad told me what happened. Are you okay?" Maya typed back quickly, "I'm okay. On the plane now. We'll call when I land. I love you." She switched her phone to airplane mode before she could see any responses. She wasn't ready to talk about what had happened yet. She needed time to process it herself first. Other passengers were boarding now, walking past first class toward the economy section. A few glanced at Maya curiously. One woman actually stopped and said, "Excuse me, are you the girl from the security checkpoint? The one in the videos?" Maya froze, unsure how to respond. But the woman smiled kindly. "I just wanted to say that security guard was completely wrong to treat you that way. You handled it better than I would have. I hope he gets fired." "Thank you," Maya managed to say. The woman nodded and continued toward her seat. Two more passengers stopped with similar comments as they passed. "You did nothing wrong. That guard was awful. I hope you're okay." Maya tried to smile and thank each one, but inside she felt strange. She hadn't done anything heroic. She had just stood there and taken it because she didn't know what else to do. Finally, all the passengers were boarded, and the flight attendants began their safety demonstration. Maya stared out the window, watching the ground crew load luggage and prepare the plane for departure. In a few hours, she would be in Washington, D.C., walking into the leadership summit where she would meet other brilliant students from around the country. She had been so excited about it for months. Now she felt exhausted and emotionally drained. The plane pushed back from the gate and began taxiing toward the runway. Maya watched the airport buildings slide past her window. Somewhere back there, Morrison was probably getting the lecture of his life from Director Patterson and the Secret Service. Part of her felt bad for him. Part of her didn't. Mostly, she just felt tired. Her phone buzzed one more time before the signal cut out completely. A text from an unknown number. "This is Agent Stone. Just wanted to check that you made your flight okay. If you need anything during your time in D.C., don't hesitate to reach out. We'll still be keeping an eye on things, but from a respectful distance like you wanted. Safe travels." Maya smiled for the first time since the whole ordeal began. She typed back a quick thank you even though she knew it wouldn't send until they landed. The plane's engines roared to life and they began racing down the runway. Maya felt the moment when the wheels left the ground, when gravity released its hold and they lifted into the sky. She watched the city below get smaller and smaller until it disappeared beneath the clouds. She thought about what Director Patterson had said, that she had handled the situation with grace and dignity. At the time, she hadn't felt graceful or dignified. She had felt scared and powerless and humiliated, but maybe that was okay. Maybe strength wasn't about never feeling those things. Maybe it was about feeling them and keeping going anyway. Maya pulled out her laptop from her backpack. She had a presentation to review for the summit. She had work to do, and she wasn't going to let Morrison or anyone else make her feel like she didn't belong there. The flight attendant came by with a menu for the first-class meal service. "Can I get you anything to drink while you look that over?" "Just water, please," Maya said. Then she added, "And thank you for being kind today. It means a lot." The flight attendant's expression softened. "You're very welcome, sweetheart. And for what it's worth, that security guard didn't know who he was messing with. Anyone can see you're going places." As the attendant walked away, Maya opened her laptop and pulled up her presentation. The title slide read, "Building Stronger Digital Security Through Inclusive Leadership." She had written it 3 weeks ago, never imagining how relevant those words would become. She settled into her comfortable seat and got to work. There would be time later to deal with the videos, the attention, and whatever consequences Morrison would face. Right now she had a summit to prepare for, and she wasn't going to let anyone stop her from being ready. 3 weeks had passed since that day at the airport, and Maya's life had changed in ways she never could have imagined. She sat in her bedroom scrolling through her phone, still somewhat amazed by everything that had happened. The video of her confrontation with Morrison had gone viral, racking up over 15 million views across different social media platforms. Major news outlets had covered the story. She had been interviewed by 3 different television networks, but it wasn't the attention that mattered most to her. It was what had come from it. Her phone buzzed with a text from her friend Priya. "Did you see the news? They just posted the final decision about that security guard." Maya's heart rate quickened. She opened her news app and there it was, the headline she had been waiting for. Airport security officer suspended after viral incident. Required to complete bias training. She read through the article carefully. The airport authority had completed its investigation into Morrison's conduct. The findings were damning. Multiple passengers had submitted their video footage, and the airport's own security cameras had captured the entire incident. The review board had determined that Morrison had violated several policies, including proper document verification procedures, professional conduct standards, and anti-discrimination guidelines. Morrison had been suspended without pay for 90 days. When he returned to work, he would be permanently removed from any public-facing role. Instead, he would be assigned to equipment maintenance and inventory management in the back offices. He was also required to complete over 40 hours of training on implicit bias, cultural sensitivity, and proper security protocols before he could return to any duty. His supervisor, Linda, had received a formal written reprimand and was required to complete similar training. She would remain in her position but under close supervision for the next year. Maya's phone rang. It was her dad calling. She answered with a smile. "Hey Dad, I just saw the news." "I figured you would," her father said. His voice was warm but serious. "How are you feeling about it?" Maya thought for a moment. "I don't know. Part of me feels like he got what he deserved, but another part of me just feels sad that it had to happen at all." "That's a very mature way to look at it," her father said. "I'm proud of you, Maya. Not just for how you handled that situation, but for everything that's come after. The way you've used this experience to speak out about fairness and dignity and security procedures. That takes courage." After they hung up, Maya opened her laptop and looked at the document she had been working on. It was a policy proposal titled, "Improving Airport Security Through Better Training and Accountability." She had been asked to present it at a congressional hearing next month. A congressional hearing. At 17 years old, the National Youth Leadership Summit had been incredible, but it had also been surreal. Everyone there had known about the airport incident before she arrived. At first, she had been worried they would treat her differently, like she was fragile or needed special attention. But instead they had treated her like exactly what she was, a fellow leader who had experienced something unfair and was doing something about it. Her presentation at the summit had gone viral too, in a different way than the airport video. People had shared clips of her speaking about the importance of treating every person with respect, regardless of how they look or where they come from. She had talked about how security and dignity didn't have to be opposites, how you could keep people safe while still treating them with kindness. The director of Homeland Security had been in the audience. Afterward, he had approached her and her father with an interesting proposition. They were forming a new advisory committee on youth perspectives in security policy, and they wanted Maya to be one of the founding members. She would help review and provide feedback on policies that affected young travelers and students. Maya had said yes without hesitation. Her email pinged with a new message. It was from Director Patterson at the airport. She opened it and read, "Dear Miss Chen, I wanted to update you on some positive changes we've implemented following the incident in September. We have completely overhauled our training program for all security personnel. Every officer now receives 8 hours of additional training on implicit bias, 4 hours on adolescent psychology and appropriate interaction with minor travelers, and ongoing quarterly refreshers on respectful communication. We have also implemented a new feedback system where passengers can immediately report concerning behavior by security staff. Finally, we have established a passenger advocate position at the airport, someone specifically tasked with ensuring travelers are treated fairly and have someone to turn to if they feel they've been mistreated. I know this doesn't undo what happened to you, but I hope it prevents it from happening to anyone else. You've helped make our airport a better place. Thank you." Maya read the email twice, feeling a warm sense of accomplishment wash over her. Real change. Actual policy changes that would affect thousands of travelers. That was bigger than any amount of views or likes or media attention. She heard a knock on her door. Her mother poked her head in. "Sweetie, there's someone here to see you. She says she's from the airport that day." Maya's eyebrows shot up in surprise. She followed her mother downstairs and found an elderly woman standing in their living room. It took Maya a moment to recognize her. It was the woman who had stood up for her in the security line, the one Morrison had snapped at. "I hope you don't mind me stopping by," the woman said with a gentle smile. "I asked at the airport how I might contact you, and they were kind enough to pass along my request to your family." "Of course not," Maya said, gesturing for her to sit down. "Please have a seat." The woman sat on the couch and pulled out a small wrapped package. "I wanted to give you this, and to tell you something important." Maya sat across from her, curious. She unwrapped the package to find a beautiful leather-bound journal. On the first page, the woman had written, "For Maya, who showed us all what quiet courage looks like." "That day at the airport," the woman continued, "I watched you stand there and take that abuse with such composure. I tried to speak up for you, but that guard shut me down, and I'm ashamed to say I backed off. I was scared. But you, young lady, you didn't back down. You kept your dignity even when someone was trying to take it from you." Maya felt tears prickling at her eyes. "You did speak up. That meant everything to me. It made me feel less alone." "I should have done more," the woman said firmly. "I should have insisted. I should have called for a supervisor myself. I should have made a bigger fuss. But I didn't, and I've been thinking about that ever since. You see, I'm 73 years old, and I grew up in a time when we were taught not to make waves, not to challenge authority, to keep our heads down. But watching what happened to you, and seeing how you handled it and what you've done since, you've reminded me that sometimes making waves is exactly what we need to do." She reached out and took Maya's hand. "Because of you, I've started speaking up more. When I see something unfair happening, I say something. Last week I saw a store clerk being rude to a young man who didn't speak English well. I spoke up. I asked to see a manager. I didn't back down. And you know what? That clerk apologized and the young man got the help he needed." Maya squeezed the woman's hand, unable to speak for a moment. She had been so focused on the big changes, the policy reforms and the training programs, that she hadn't thought about the smaller ripples.
The individual people who might have been inspired to stand up for others. "Thank you for telling me that," Maya finally said.
"That means more than you know." After the woman left, Maya sat with the journal in her hands. She opened it and began to write. She wrote about the airport, about Morrison, about fear and power and the importance of speaking up. She wrote about how one bad moment had somehow turned into dozens of good ones. She wrote about responsibility and second chances, because that was the thing she had been thinking about lately. Yes, Morrison had been wrong. Yes, he had abused his authority and treated her terribly. But she didn't want his life to be ruined forever. She wanted him to learn from this. She wanted him to become better. The suspension, the demotion, the required training, it all seemed fair. He had made serious mistakes, and there needed to be consequences. But consequences with a purpose. Consequences that taught, rather than just punished. A few days later, Maya received one more unexpected message. It was a formal letter, sent through the airport's legal department. Inside was a handwritten note on plain paper. "Miss Chen, I don't expect you to forgive me, and I don't expect you to even read this. But I needed to write it anyway. What I did to you that day was wrong. I let my assumptions and my ego turn a simple document check into a humiliating ordeal. I've spent the last 3 weeks in mandated training, learning about implicit bias and how our preconceptions can harm people. I've learned things about myself that were hard to face. I realize that I've probably treated other people poorly over the years without even recognizing it. You were brave enough to stand there with dignity, while I was being cruel. That takes more strength than I've ever shown in my 15 years of security work. I'm sorry. Truly, deeply sorry. I hope you never have to experience anything like that again, and I hope that I never cause anyone to feel the way I made you feel. Thank you for handling this with such grace. You taught me a lesson I desperately needed to learn. Respectfully, Derek Morrison." Maya read the letter 3 times. She thought about crumpling it up, about ignoring it entirely. But instead, she found herself pulling out her new journal and writing a response. "Mr. Morrison, I received your letter. I appreciate your apology, and I hope you truly have learned from this experience. What happened that day was painful and humiliating, but I've chosen to use it as an opportunity to create positive change. I hope you'll do the same. Real change doesn't come from just saying sorry. It comes from doing better every single day with every single person you encounter. I believe people can grow and change if they're willing to do the work. I hope you're willing. Sincerely, Maya Chen. She sealed the letter and decided she would mail it, not because Morrison deserved forgiveness, but because she deserved to let go of the anger. That evening, Maya sat at dinner with her parents and her brother, who had come home for the weekend. They talked about her upcoming congressional testimony, about her new position on the advisory committee, about colleges she was starting to look at. You know, her brother said, grinning at her, when you said you were going to that leadership summit, I thought it would be boring. Some students sitting around talking about policy. I never imagined my little sister would become some kind of activist hero. I'm not a hero, Maya protested. I just had something bad happen and I tried to make something good come from it. Her father smiled. That's exactly what heroes do, sweetheart. They take difficult situations and find ways to make things better for everyone. You didn't just fight for yourself. You fought for every teenager who might face the same situation in the future. That's heroic. Maya felt her cheeks warm, but she smiled. Maybe her father was right. Maybe it didn't take superpowers or dramatic rescues to be heroic. Maybe it just took standing up for what was right, even when it was hard. Especially when it was hard. As she got ready for bed that night, Maya looked at herself in the mirror. Her short hair had grown out a little. She still wore her glasses every day. She looked at the reflection and saw someone different from the nervous 17-year-old who had stood in that security line 3 weeks ago. She saw someone stronger, someone braver, someone who knew that a single voice speaking up could start an avalanche of change. And tomorrow she would use that voice again.